I'm going to tell you how you can get Ableton Live or a version of Ableton Live for $4.99 right now. The only catch with this is that you need to be an iOS user, or at least you need to know one, because I have done some research. Well, let's be more clear. My friend Claude did the research, and now my face is the research. You can get a thing called Ableton Live Lite. That's a special version of Ableton Live with some limitations, which I'll talk about in a sec. And the cheapest way to do it is to get this application, Koala Sampler. Koala Sampler is an iOS app. It's a lot of fun by itself. If that doesn't say fun, I don't know what does. And the thing that you need to know about Koala Sampler is if you buy the application, go into the top corner here, and there's a little pop-up that says, Get Live Lite. Boop. Huh. And then a little window appears in which you can place an email address. Your email address? Perhaps. But it's just a place to put an email address. Any email address that you put in that field and hit send gets a copy of Ableton Live Lite. Any email address. So even if you don't own an iOS device, you could give $5 or £5 to someone who does. They can get that app. And if they put your email address in there, then you get a copy of Ableton Live Lite. This is, as the research goes, the cheapest way. There are other applications that include it. I would be remiss not to point out that Ableton's own app, Note, also includes it. The Android version of Koala Sampler does not, I'm afraid, include this. And that's due to a licensing thing that Ableton have with app developers. You can only get this with iOS applications. I don't know why. That's just how it is. I have not tried these other ones, such as EG Pulse. I did try patterning, and you can't get it with the free version at least. So Koala Sampler is it. And what is the limitation of Live Lite, I hear you say? What am I losing by only spending $5 on my software? Glad you asked. If my face now becomes the Ableton website, we can find our thing again and again. And if I compare editions, I can see that there are 3 versions mentioned: Intro, Standard, and Suite. But not Live Lite. For Live Lite is so insignificant, it doesn't even factor on this table. Gosh, it can't be that useful, can it? But I'm here to say, I don't think that's a healthy way of thinking. For here, my face is now this hidden page about Live Lite and what is in it. Its key limitations are 16 scenes. That is the name of the kind of lanes of your intro, your verse, your chorus, to use sort of traditional terminology. You can only have 2 send and return tracks. Well, you only need delay and reverb, surely, mate. And really, the main thing to say is you get 8 tracks. But these 8 tracks can have devices, and the devices can include the drum rack, a thing, by the way, which can have 128 samples loaded into it. So you could have 8 tracks, each with a drum rack, each with 128 samples in. And although, yes, you can't play those chromatically, because you have 128 locations, you could copy and paste the same sound and then tune each slot slightly differently, MPC style, and so play melodies. A massive thing is that you can load third-party plugins into Live Lite. So you can go beyond the limited selection of plugins that it includes. But you do get Drift, which is an amazing synth, and a bunch of really good, solid, basic choruses, delays, reverbs. It's what you need. Yes, it only has 8 tracks. But here's what I want to say about that. I was playing around with it last night, and I was noticing that I was starting to come up against that limit. And a really curious thing happened when I came up on that limit, which is I just thought, okay, I can make this work. I will consolidate some of what I've done. I will delete some tracks that I was using lazily. You know, I had too much drums. I could just delete some of them and then consolidate that into a drum rack. I just have a few elements, you know. I've got a bass synth, a pad synth, a couple of sounds. I'm like, okay, I can't have loads of copies of virtual synths live, but what I could do is I could load one virtual synth into a track, and then I could resample that synth multiple times and chuck those elements into drum racks. And in fact, all of this is in service of the fact that by working with a track limited version of a DAW, I was forced to make decisions, creative decisions, where I just had to say, you can't do that. So make what you have work. If you can't make music in live light with 8 tracks, then I don't think more tracks is going to help you. I am pretty much quoting Robert Henke, who is the co-creator of Ableton, who said basically the same thing in my interview with him, which I'll link below. Having unlimited track counts is, if anything, counterproductive, because it lulls you into this sort of additive, lazy way of making music, potentially, because it's so easy to add and to add and to add. But what we could do is, by just using a few tracks carefully, we focus on having one brilliant melody that just sounds great. And we have some drums, and we have some space for a couple of other elements, and we have a drum rack where we can put 128 incidental ear candy sounds. We have more than enough in that small amount of space, and we comfortably come up against a wall. We say, if my track isn't great, then I rewrite the parts that are in there until it is great, instead of just adding and adding and adding to an original idea that itself just needed rewriting. £5, $5. That's the buy-in price for making electronic music if you have a computer, because you don't need a MIDI interface, you don't need an audio interface, you just need a pair of headphones, really. And you probably already got a pair. So that's it. Get to it.